two, one, two, three.
No better.
More better. More better.
With Tracy and Faye. Yeah!
Hi, I'm Tracy.
Hi, and I'm Faye, and welcome to More Better with Tracy and Faye. Last December, Tracy and I delivered a great workshop for a group of HR professionals that focused just on email. Given all the different kinds of business writing that we could have focused on, the team leader wanted us to really zero in on only emails. And when I asked her why, she mentioned a few things. She gets asked to review emails before they go out, and she, a self-professed bad writer, ends up editing emails for brevity, clarity, and action. So she wanted to sort of help reduce that. Her team and other HR people also send out a lot of emails for various reasons. So she's aware that they might even be competing against each other, but also not only against each other, but also other emails that are coming from across the organization. Another thing she recognized is that they receive a lot of emails. So she was interested in how we could help her teams develop some skills and how you can sort of give it your best chance when you're, through efficient and effective writing. And lastly, she knows that her teams, that they try their best, but admitted that even to her, writing emails is stressful. How do we take something that we all do every day and make it less stressful for the person writing the email while also making it better for the person receiving the email? Thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so interesting. While the topic of emails, it's so narrow, it might even seem like, really, we're just going to talk about emails? But it is the main, probably the most important channel through business communication now that exists in the world. And everything that HR leader said about what she and her team experiences around stress around email, there are actual stats to back that up. So in terms of like time, people spend, and these are stats, this is stats from research on emails. People spend 2 to 2.5 hours every day dealing with work emails. 2 to 2.5 hours. That's like a quarter of their day. And then another 2 hours dealing with their personal emails on top of that. It is such a busy environment, right? It's nuts. And the data also says that for every email I send, I get 3 in return. So if I send 50 emails a day, I'm getting 150. And guess what I'm doing that night? I'm weeding my way through the 150 emails. There's just a lot. There's a lot going on. And because of that, because of so many emails coming and going, and the stress you might feel because you have to write one, and then I have to write one, is it going to get seen within all the clutter? And then if it does get seen, what's going to come back at me? And some of the things that we learned around that is almost half, 47% of people decide on whether or not to even open an email by the subject line. Too much. There's too much coming at me. If the subject line of your email doesn't capture me, I'm not even going to open it up, right? And people spend very little time reading. I mean, we kind of know this. We know people don't invest a lot of time to read something that shows up for them. Generally, compared to the past, right? So there's just so many competing stressors that around emails, competing interests and competing stressors that coming up with, as you said, some practices around managing an email. And what we're arguing here is that if you get better at writing your email, you will actually reduce the stress associated with email in general.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a lot of content and training out there and how to, or, information about how to manage your inbox and all that sort of good stuff, right? Which is totally valid. Like you say, we're overwhelmed with all these emails in our inbox. I mean, and you're right. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I'll get an email and I'll judge it from its subject line. Do I want to read it? In seconds. I'm judging that in less than 5 seconds. Am I reading it? Am I not? Right. But I think, how do we help reduce that stress? And I think it starts with writing great emails, right? Effective, action-oriented emails. So what Tracy and I have created is a way to approach emails that will help reduce your email stress. Stress related to writing an email, stress that comes with wondering, will my email be read and acted acted upon. And in both cases, we can reduce email stress by writing better emails. You might be wondering, well, how could more email reduce email stress? Well, right? Like, how does that happen?
Seems a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah, a little bit. But here's, so if you write more effective emails, you'll get fewer unwanted replies and a far greater likelihood that your email will achieve the goal you set. So I'm going to try to describe an example, and hopefully this lands. So here we go. So let's say, picture this. You send an email to 25 people, right? But 15 come back with questions. I don't understand this. And what do you mean by this? And all that, right? So now I've got 15 additional email threads in my inbox. Maybe they replied all. Maybe they replied, just to me, all that sort of stuff. But now I got to manage all that on top of the ones, on top of like hoping that someone is going to action that email properly. But if you write a better email using the structure that we're going to introduce, you won't get as many unwanted replies from people asking for clarity, more information, etc. Maybe you'll get 1 or 2 emails from 15 to 2 email threads. Like, sign me up. Who wouldn't want that?
Right. So you might be saying to yourself, as Faye talked about at the beginning, I'm not a good writer. How can I write better emails when I actually don't feel like I'm a good writer? But this process that Faye and I are going to introduce to you, none of the things in here is about writing better. It's about how to approach an email, how to structure an email. And yes, if you can become better at writing, that helps. But you don't have to be a good writer to do this. Because here's the secret. For an email to be effective, it needs only 3 things. Sorry, I held up my hand for 10. But really, I mean 3. 3 things that an effective email needs. It needs a descriptive subject line. The purpose of the email needs to be clear and upfront to the person receiving it. And it needs an obvious call to action. Descriptive subject line, purpose of your email, obvious call to action. Those are all your emails need to be quote unquote effective. And we will talk about all those 3 things. But before we get to that, before you get to the writing of your email, and this is where time well spent before you put fingers to keyboard, are things you need to do before you write, things you need to consider. So there are 3 things, another set of 3 that we're going to talk about. We'll take them one at a time, but those 3 things are, number 1, is it an email? Number 2, what is the objective of my email? And 3, what information, perspective, or context does my audience need to take the action that I want so my objective will be met? So one at a time. In my head, I'm thinking, I got to send an email to Faye related to a meeting we're going to have next week.
Sure.
So I'm about to put fingers to keyboard, and then I go, wait a minute, is this actually an email? Does she need to get this as an email? Is there another way I could get this information to her that won't fill up her email box? So maybe it's not an email. Or maybe the 5 people I was going to send a laundry list email to, I could actually just arrange for a 10-minute phone call. And in 10 minutes, I could impart the stuff because there's no need for it to actually be in an email. Mm-hmm. And asking yourself, is it an email, can actually save you email stress. Okay?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think the question around, am I adding to this person's inbox is a great question, because everyone's got overflowing inboxes, right? So everyone knows what it's like to get an email, about a meeting, about whatever, right? Like
about the discussion we just had 5 seconds ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So also I would advise also think about, obviously it depends on your culture and at work, but think about other ways to communicate. Is it a quick Teams chat? Like, hey, I want to meet with you, whatever. Could you just book the meeting and put it in the body of that invite? Mm-hmm. Again, it depends on your culture, and depends if that's okay, right? Like if that seems too abrupt for your workplace, then maybe it is just you ping somebody, whether it's, on Teams or whatever you're using, on Slack or whatever, and just say, hey, okay, can we, I want to meet with you next week. That good? Like, I want to meet with you to talk about X, Y, and Z. I'm going to invite these other people. Sound good? Yes, no? That's a good check-in, right? And that's all it is. Maybe you have to call them. Like maybe that's part of your better part of your
Okay,
work.
introvert, pick up the phone.
I know.
Hi, just checking in that we're still on for 2:00. I didn't want to send you an email because nobody wants that email.
Or just-
Okay, so we've asked the question, is it an email? Maybe we've decided, yes, it's an email. Okay, it's an email. So what is our objective of that email? That's the second thing you need to think about. And this is something that a lot of people don't think about. They're just like, oh, I got to send Faye an email about this thing, so I'm going to send it to Faye. So I do it without thinking, like, what do I need? Why am I sending this to Faye? What do I need Faye to do? And you'll hear the two of us talk about this all the time in communications. When you're thinking of any kind of communication, is what's the objective? What's the objective with this other person? Why am I sending them an email? What do I want them to do? Because I'm probably not sending them an email for shits and giggles. There's a reason behind it. So what is that reason? And make sure I know that. So if my reason for sending the email is because I need everybody starting at, 10:00 on Thursday to stand up and spin around 3 times and sit down. Okay, that's my objective. Now I know going into my email what I want to get out of it. So what do I need to say to get those people to do all that? So be careful with your objective. And as Faye and I often talk about, your objective is seldom that you just need to tell people something. There's a reason you're telling them. So figure out what that is,
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think is it an email and the objective are so tied together because it's about best tactic, but right tool for the right job.
Yes.
Right. So if I just need to like check in with Tracy, like if that's my objective and he's check in on this, like again, is it an email? I don't know. Is it a phone call? Is it a Teams chat? Right? Do I have to ask her? Am I asking her to do something, prepare for a meeting or we're having with the senior leadership team? Then yes, then maybe that's a little bit, I've got a meat in there. I've got lots of detail, all that sort of good stuff. So be clear on your objective and then the tactic will follow.
Yeah. And then the follow-on for that objective is what information, perspective, or context does my audience need to take the action? So any kind of communication we do, it's not about what I want to tell somebody. It's about what do they need to hear or read to take the action that I want so that my objective will be met. So I might think, well, if I would be swayed to pick this holiday place if I knew, where it was in location to the beach. But it might be for someone else that their priority is not location to the beach. Maybe their priority is location to great restaurants, as an example, right? So what information, perspective, or context does your audience need to make the decision that you want them to make? It's somewhat marketing-esque when I think about it that way, but it also, again, we don't want to write long emails. People, if you're getting an email, you really want it short. People spend, 2 to 3 minutes reading. So don't send people 20 minutes worth of content. Send them as little as possible so that your objective has the highest likelihood of being met.
Yeah. I think what we've seen in emails is people want to provide a lot of context and background. So that example so that example of like picking a place by the beach or, picking a holiday place or whatever. Sometimes you might be tempted to say, hey, Tracy, I want to book this place because this is what I want to, this is what's important to me. And you go on about, well, I want it's near the beach and this and that. But if you know your audience, and again, we're going to talk about that, we've talked about that in lots of different episodes, but know who you're speaking to. And that's ties to your objective, right? And give them enough information to take that action, make that decision, whatever you're asking them to do. You can always share that additional context in another way at another time, but really think about, do they need all that information to actually do the thing that I want them to do, which is to book that vacation property because, it's on sale and it's only it's 5 minutes from now or whatever, right? So we got to do it right now. What information do they really need?
I have one client of mine does follow-up emails after doing service at their businesses. And this client is not a strong writer and it takes them a really long time to do what they're doing. And so I was asking a lot of questions about, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And all the rest of it. And And this company is a trades company. And when they follow up, what this client would do is they would write just everything they could think about, everything that they saw on the property, everything that needed fixing, how they would fix it, the codes attached to it. Like, it was a very dense document, and that no one knew if clients even read them or appreciated them. In getting some feedback from some clients, they never read it. They just file it until next time. And when I was talking to this client, finding out why do they do the letters this way, and how could we actually streamline the process of it. And I said, well, what do your clients need to hear? And this guy was like, never really thought about that. Because his perspective was, I want to download all of my information that I learned on their site so they don't have to come back to me with questions. So he spends all the time, except that it didn't work that way.
It didn't work. No,
it didn't, because the document was too dense.
Yeah.
And everything was there, but you would have to study it for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't think that your clients' needs aren't being met. Your needs are certainly not being met. So what can we do differently so that your clients get what they need and it doesn't make you crazy? And it won't take you so long to do it, because you are over contextualizing. You are over informing.
Yeah.
And that is actually working against your best interests.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good story. All right. So now now that we know that is an email, right? And we just talked about that example. We've identified our objective, and we've figured out, okay, we've figured out what information or context that they'll need to meet our objective. We're going to go back to those 3 things we mentioned earlier that every email needs: descriptive subject line, purpose of the email, and an obvious call to action. So let's take one of these things at a time. So, descriptive subject line. We all see them, right? We see that in our inbox.
You mean the ones that say meeting?
I have that. That's the sound I'm going to make for like all the emails that come in.
So you see that subject line that says meeting or
meeting.
Hey.
My favorite. Or connect.
Connect. And you're like, I'm going to get right on that email.
Are you? Yeah.
Well, remember, 47% of people decide to open it based on the subject line.
All right. Descriptive subject line. Well, what do we want to say about descriptive? Like, I would say, it's funny because I apply this in my own personal, like in my own personal emails, right? Like action. For action.
I'm a fan. Yeah.
Approval or review.
Approval for action. Or if it's not one of that, if it's not action-oriented one, maybe you're providing information to someone, had asked you for some information, and it'll be follow-up info on topics.
Yeah.
So then they go, oh, Tracy sent me an email, and without opening it, it's the follow-up. I'm like, I don't need to read that right now. I'm going to read it later.
Yeah. Or maybe I do.
Or maybe I do.
That, and I've been waiting for that email. I'm gonna go action that right now. But it helps.
But things, I would say, stay away from anything. If it's a single word subject, you need to say more. Follow up, meeting, hey, connect.
Yeah.
These aren't helping anybody. You are adding to someone else's email stress.
Yes.
To bring it back to stress, you're adding to their email stress. Be descriptive in your subject line, and that way you're actually giving people meaningful information and reducing their stress. Unless it's urgent, emergency, emergency. Call me now. In which case, it was not an email. Should have been a phone call.
Yeah. That wasn't an email. Maybe a phone call. Maybe an urgent text. Whatever that is. Again, objective. Tactic follows objective, right? Yeah. The other thing around descriptive subject lines, I would say, is don't be like. I think sometimes people think, whoever thinks that we got to keep these subject lines short as possible. So maybe that's where the hey, connect, or meeting, maybe that's where it comes from. And I don't know where that comes from, but I'm not saying write a novel in your subject line, right? Like I don't have a word count for that, but be descriptive and succinct.
So people know why they're getting this email without having to open your email.
And maybe a good test is, write a subject line, send it to yourself, and see how it lands in your inbox. Because you know how like you could only see so many words like in an inbox, like in your. I know you can change the margins and all that, or all that sort of stuff. But just see how it lands, right? And what does that, just send it to yourself, just with the subject line, right? And what does that look like amongst all your other emails that are in your box?
And is anybody going to notice it? Right?
Yeah, maybe, maybe not. All right. Second, purpose of the email. So we want to be clear about right away. Get to the point as to why. Answer right away. Why am I receiving this email? Right. That's what I would like. And
for sure.
Put that in your right away at the.
It's like right under, or sometimes I've seen it like above. Dear Tracy, you are receiving this email because, you're on this list of people. That's why you're getting it. But even if it's not that, it's just one-on-one. You get those emails, and I'll open it, and then I'm reading it. I'm like, I don't know why I'm reading this. Yeah. And it's a really long email, and I'm hoping they get to the point. But usually I lose interest before they get to the point. So you can't tell a story at the top of your email. You have to say, you're getting this email because, or I'm writing to you because, or I'm looking for your input on X. Yeah. You don't have to do the, hi, how are you? I hope this finds you well. How are your kids? Those, you can do it if you have that relationship. But if you don't have that relationship, you're just in the business of business. Get to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking for your feedback on, my presentation yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Wanted your opinion on X. I need you to review X, whatever that is. And, don't be scared. Don't be scared that it comes across harsh or abrupt. Maybe that's where it comes from. Like, so I know we get a lot of emails that, hi, how are you? And and that again, depends on your culture, right? But that does get in the way, right?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those.
But it's not a conversation, right? Like, it's not like I can call you and say,
some
hey,
people say, like, I think we probably, a lot of us, we write an email the way we like to receive it. And there are people who find the business communication, they find it abrupt, they find it a bit harsh. They would rather, if I'm getting an email from a colleague, that they say, hey, how are you? We need to talk about whatever the email is. But I know for me, it's like, how many emails do people get today, right? Get a day?
Lots.
2.5 hours worth of emails. I would say get to the point and let people know right up front. I'm writing you because this email is landing in front of your face because you need to do something. So this is what it is.
Yeah. Being direct isn't necessarily harsh or abrupt.
Yeah.
It's clear, right? I think
it's just clear.
It's kind and clear.
Oh, that's right. So I actually have this Post-it note that of the words that you said about exactly that, where, business communication doesn't need to be harsh and cold, but it needs to be clear, be direct, be firm, be kind.
Yep.
And that's what they need.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
You're so smart.
All right. Last one. Third ingredient, obvious call to action or ask.
Yeah.
So I would say similar to your subject line. Like, again, I've been in situations where I've done the descriptive subject line, I've written the purpose, and then I'll put, because it's a business email, action, and then blah, 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 blah. And I've had feedback from people going, well, we've already said it. And I'm like, so don't you think? I don't want them to miss it. This is the best part of the email. I need you to review this or approve this funding by Monday. I need you to whatever.
Like if my subject line said for approval by June 22nd, in the body of the email under the, I'll say action, usually in all caps, I'll say action, and then say, please return by email by June 22nd.
Mm-hmm. Or please respond or whatever that is. Right? Yeah.
I know I used to be in that camp where I'd be afraid to say things more than once. And then I learned that as human, we just need to hear it over and over again, over and over and over again. We got too much information getting crammed into our heads all the time. It's not, so don't waste it on unnecessary context and information. Say, this is my purpose. This is the ask.
Yeah, exactly. And write it in a way that they don't miss it. right? They don't want to, you don't want them to miss, you don't want them to miss the action because
I've
that's what
done
you want
that.
them to do, right?
When I've been reviewing stuff for clients and I said, well, where's the call to action? Like, well, in this paragraph, it says they need to do X, Y, and Z by whatever date. I'm like, but it's buried in the body of a paragraph. It's not going to be seen by almost anybody. Most people skim.
Mhm.
So make your layout so that make it skimmable. People can skim and still get the important information.
Silly.
And it was like, yeah, we don't like to go, we don't like to go hunting for information.
No,
Certainly
don't
not in emails.
Don't make people hunt and gather, right?
No.
And again, like it's not abrupt, it's not rude, it's direct, clear, kind, and firm.
Yes,
Right?
all
And
those
those are
things.
okay. Great.
For sure. And, as we said, if you need, it's okay to have extra information. You can have more than just a descriptive subject line, a clear purpose, and an obvious ask. But whatever goes in addition to that, be really judicious about that. Go, okay, they do need that information. They do need that context. They do need that perspective because this is my audience. This is what I want them to do. I know if I give them that, they are more likely to take the action that I want. But only give them that. Don't give there's no freebies because actually it works against you. Like that becomes the stress. It's like someone's going to read their email and it's buried. There's all this information. You're like, do I need all this information? I don't know what's going on. I'm getting all this information I don't think I need. But Tracy asked me to do this, but now she's telling me that. And so I've now added to their stress. They're going to email me back probably for clarification. So now they're adding to my stress. And then we just get this little game of stress ball going on when if I do my job more carefully at the front end with the email that I send, I reduce everybody's stress. Oh, wait, before we wrap this up, there's one important thing.
Oh, okay.
Faye, let's talk about attachments.
I would apply, the conversation we had about objective and tactics to attachments as well, right? So what is just like what you said, what is the objective of this attachment? So yes, if it's absolutely concrete, you need people to fill that sucker in, or you need it's got something, it's part of the action. Maybe that's
part of the action.
Maybe that's part of the decision tree around attachments. If it's just, how many times have you had an attachment, land in your inbox, you open it and you went, this is the exact same information that's in the email.
Yeah, don't do that.
How many
Never
times?
do that.
It's happened,
Let me attach the brochure that's got all the information I just put in.
Which I just talked about in my email, right?
Yeah. In that case, repetition, not good.
Yeah, not good. Not good. If it's something like, a lot of people put embedded links too in their emails.
That's fine.
So, and that's okay.
As long as it makes sense, yeah.
And it gives people options, but as long as that's an option, right? So maybe one of your recipients is new to the organization and doesn't have all the context that maybe the other people do. So fine, include hey, there's a page on our intranet that you might want to look at. Go check it out, right? But it's an option, not you must click all the 10 links, embedded links.
And that's the key. It's just all about making it easy for your recipient to do what you need them to do. Don't overcomplicate. Don't send stuff they don't need. Don't bury people in something that's just really, really long.
Yep. All right. That's attachments. You asked me about them. There you go.
You had strong feelings on attachments.
I do have very strong feelings about that. So do you.
That's true. All right. To recap, this is like 2 sets of 3. There are 3 things that you need to do.
Okay.
First, I'll do the first 3. You can do the second 3.
Oh, no,
Before you write your email, you need to ask yourself, 1, is it an email? Assuming it is, what is my objective with this email? And be really clear on what you want the recipients to do. That's your objective. And then knowing that's the objective and knowing that's your audience, what information, context, et cetera, do they need to take the action you want them to take? And then you set fingers to keyboard.
Now that you know, like this fingers to keyboard.
Yeah.
Now that you know it's an email, what are the 3 magic ingredients, all the things we're promising that you need in an email? Descriptive subject line. They know exactly what this email is all about. Purpose of this email. Why am I receiving this in the first place? and an obvious call to action or a request or ask. What do you want me to do? Those are the three magic things. As long as you have those in your email, it will be effective and efficient.
Yep. And you will reduce your email stress and the stress of the people around you. We hope. That is the goal. That is our objective.
Keep trying.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of More Better with Tracy and Faye. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Faye. Join us next time on More Better with Tracy and Faye.